Well, earlier we spoke with CBS News contributor and Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan to preview Trump's meeting on Capitol Hill.
No, I don't think at one meeting you solve it, but you might be starting the process whereby things get solved. I always tell people in Washington the past few days where everybody's fighting, all the Republicans are at each other's throats, the conservatives are killing each other. A kind word turneth away wrath. Sit down, talk, try not to hit each other over the head. Paul Ryan and Donald Trump both have a problem. Trump really does need a unified Republican Party, and he would benefit from the support of the Republican establishment in Washington. At the same time, the Republican leaders in Washington have to realize, maybe not be so full of themselves and think, wait a second, Trump didn't just win. He didn't just beat 16 other challengers who we, Washington Republicans, all supported. He won about 10.5 million votes, and he reached outside the party and for the first time in years brought people in. That deserves respect on its own. Also, Trump's people voted for specific proposals that were at odds with the views of the Republican establishment in Washington, meaning the Trump vote was in part a rebuke of them. That must sting. So everybody has a few things to get over before they get together. Maybe they'll be able to, maybe not. If they can't, I hope they simply seriously and reasonably explain what keeps them apart. I hope they don't just spend the next few months taking shots at each other.
How much do you think is this about tone? I mean, as we've listened to various Republican leaders speak, they're very careful with their words. They're very aware of the fact that there are multiple audiences that they're speaking to when they talk about Trump and the dilemma of Trump. Are they considering the tone and the overall message that they send out to, voters, not only in the national election, but there's a lot of talk about the down ballots and senators trying to, senators in the middle trying to keep their seats come election time?
I think everybody, there's nothing wrong with being careful in your words. If you can be careful and somewhat accepting and affectionate, even better. But careful is fine, and carefulness is in order. I also think one of the things that'll help here is sheer time. You know, it's funny, Washington Republicans kind of thought, they were still shocked when Trump won last week. Why? Because they were thinking, Trump's not the kind of guy who wins, so he probably won't win, so we don't have to fear a Trump win. And then he won. Everything collapsed, and suddenly you had one guy and he was the victor. So they're going to have to get their brains around that, even as Trump is going to have to get his brain around the idea that he does need them.
But could it be, Peggy, that Mr. Trump really does not represent Republican values, as some Republicans have said? It's not just a question of he brought more people into the party. You brought people into the party that do not subscribe to the conservative Republican ideals as put forth by Ronald Reagan and Jack Kemp, as some people have posited.
I would say what you can see from the 10.5 million who supported Trump is that they, in their own way, it seems to me, are trying to redefine what conservative means. In Washington, to pick one example, their idea of appropriately conservative has been sort of kind of functionally open borders. It has been cut the entitlements. Entitlement spending is killing us. Well, the people who support Trump say, no, we don't trust you to cut our entitlements. We don't want you to, not right now. We're in a bad enough place in our lives already. As for the border, we've tried it your way 20 years. We now want it closed. These are real differences, and both sides can claim they're being conservative in some way. Do you know what I mean?
But Trump can claim he has the votes, he has the voters, he has those voters that he bought.
Well, he does. Yeah. I mean, he's the guy who won he loves to say this, I beat 16 people. Well, in fact, he did. So this is a party that is rearranging itself. If it does it unhappily and violently, in a way, it's going to fall apart. You'll be witnessing the shattering and breaking of the Republican Party, and you'll be witnessing some other parties trying to take its place. If it can get through this trauma and this challenge, the Trump dilemma, it may indeed endure as a changed party into the future. We'll see, but this is big stuff we're looking at. It's history.
It is, it is. Can we talk a little bit about West Virginia? The Democrats, but somehow Trump also sort of wiggles his way
Yeah.
into this conversation. I thought the exit polls were really, really interesting. Among the interesting things that were asked, over 40% of those who voted for Bernie Sanders said that they would be willing to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Is that just the general sort of across-the-board rejection of all things as they used to be?
Yeah, this is one of the great questions, that little part of that focus, of that exit poll stuff. Look, I think there's two things going on. One is that people do want an outsider. Even Democrats feel somewhat betrayed by their leadership. Republicans will tell you that in every poll, but I think even Democrats do. They want an outsider, and they want someone who seems to actually believe what he says. Well, that'll be Sanders, and that'll be pretty much Trump. There's another thing. You look at those same exit polls, you'll see consistently, and in the battleground polls, do you think Mrs. Clinton is a truthful, trustworthy person? And
Yeah.
they say
Yeah,
no.
they say no.
She's always struggling in that
This
area.
is an impediment. We've all known this for so long we forget to pay attention to it. But this is a problem with a major party figure when so many members of that person's base say, well, no, we don't trust her. We don't
Right.
think she's good to her word. You know, we
Yeah.
don't find her to be perhaps the most sincere and earnest person. That's a problem, and that may feed into the idea that, oh my gosh, compared to her, I guess I'd take Trump.
But can
That's
you-
my guess.
But when you see, for example, the polling that came out yesterday on those swing states in Ohio and in Florida, et cetera, and you see in a head-to-head match, Bernie Sanders does well against Donald Trump, but it's so early. I say to myself, you've been around Washington for a long time. Do you really think when it comes to crunch time, head-to-head, and a socialist can win the presidency of the United States, even against somebody like Donald Trump, who some people would say, you know, that hashtag never Trump? Is that your take? Do you think that he could really, you think those polling numbers are?
Yeah, that's a very big question. Look, I totally agree with you. This many months out before the November voting, you're just taking a quick temperature. You don't know what it means. It seemed to me, however, the headline on those battleground state polls was that we had all been telling ourselves that in a matchup with Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton will win by 5, 10, 15
Right, that was
points.
sort of the headline,
So
right?
that's
Yeah.
sort of what everybody expects. It's what everybody's sort of seen in polls in the past. Suddenly these polls come out,
Not so.
Florida, Ohio, and they're head to head.
Right.
That is a headline.
losing in one
That
case.
speaks at least, that doesn't necessarily speak of an outcome, but it speaks of a sort of yeasty environment where everything's coming up and bopping around, where there's a lot of dynamism going on, and where people are probably having arguments at every dinner table in America about, I like this one, I like this one. Nothing's settled. Everything is foment, if that's the word.
Yes,
I like
it's only
it.
going to get more interesting as we move towards
Aren't
November.
we lucky?
We
This
are.
is our business.
Yeah, it keeps us busy.
You don't have to fill time when you talk about this election now. You're talking fast because there's so much you want to get in.
Absolutely. Peggy Noonan, thank you so much. Always great to have you.
Thank you. I love being here.
Yeah, thank you.